Some people really like Roger Ebert, like a lot, like fucking love him. And Roger Ebert isn't a terrible film critic, but he also has the good fortune of being possibly the most famous one. Whenever people say they love Roger Ebert, I'm like, you don't know. Probably couldn't name five film critics then. You just know what it says on the cover of a VHS tape or a DVD box. I've read some really bad reviews on this channel before, but none of them are as bad as Roger fucking Ebert's. Roger Ebert had some cool ideas. He was a decent writer. He provided insight every once in a while, but most of the time, what Roger Ebert did was advertise his complete stupidity. Look at this fucking review for one of my favorite films, I Know What You Did Last Summer, his one-star review from October 1997. Let's see what big fucking brain Ebert has to say about this. Hit me, Roger. Hit me, Roger. What you got? What you got? Like the most well-paid fucking critic in the world, the most well-known fucking film reviewer. Let's see. Let's see how you do against I Know What You Did Last Summer. The best shot in this film is the first one. Not a good sign. What? 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 I isn't it it's just like a crane shot, right? It's just like a shot. It's just a swooping shot over a body of water, right? I Know What You Did Last Summer begins dramatically with the camera swooping high above a dark and stormy sea. Uh, okay. I guess he really liked the beginning of The Lost Boys too, and then circling it until it reveals a lonely figure sitting on a cliff overlooking the surf. The shot leads us to anticipate dread, horror, and atmospheric gloominess, but alas, it is not to be. I feel like Ebert would fucking jerk himself off while writing sometimes. Not a good sign. Alas, it is not to be. Like, oh, whoa, bro, fucking roasting it, dude. Whoa, you're so smart. You're so smart. Like so many horror films, this one is set on a national holiday, the 4th of July. Christmas and Graduation Day are also popular, although Thanksgiving now seems reserved for movies about dysfunctional families. In a small North Carolina town, a beauty pageant ends with Helen, Sarah Michelle Gellar, um, you spelled Queen Sarah Michelle Gellar wrong. You you forgot to write our goddess Sarah Michelle Gellar. Wait, you fucking stupid bitch. Actually, Steve spelled Sarah Michelle Gellar's name wrong. Oh my god, okay. Being crowned the Croaker Queen. The reference is to a fish, but the pun is intended, I fear. Roger Ebert, was he always this insufferable? Like, honestly. Blinking back tears of joy, she announces her plans. Through art, I shall serve my country. Come on, it's fucking awesome. We meet her friends, her obnoxious rich boyfriend Barry, Ryan Phillippe, her brainy best friend Julie, Jennifer Love Hewitt, and Julie's boyfriend Ray, Freddie Prinze Jr. Yeah, perfect Kevin Williamson analogs for Dawson, Joey, Pacey, and Jen, so far as the behaviors are concerned. Barry is a jerk who likes to get in fights and drive while drunk. Can you say alcoholic? Julie asks him. They build a bonfire on the beach and debate the old urban legend about the teenage couple who found the bloody hook embedded in their car door. And then driving home, they strike a shadowy figure walking in the road. What is he doing? Ebert, what are you doing? Please don't tell me you're just gonna fucking summarize the movie. That's the laziest thing you can do if you're a film critic. I can't believe I think he is. In a panic, they dump him into the sea even though he is not quite dead. They're afraid to go to the police and risk reckless manslaughter charges. This is your future, Julie, Barry screams at her. Helen then goes off to New York for her showbiz career, and Julie heads for college, but by next summer they're back home again, pale, chastened, and racked by guilt. I mean, you're describing a kind of complicated teen film, a complicated horror film about responsibility and about how we are wrecked by our adolescence, by the masculine force of responsibility, and how it manifests its evil and demented. That's when one of them gets a note that says, I know what you did last summer, and they panic and try to find out who sent it, who knows what they did. The movie loses what marginal tension it has developed and unwinds in a tedious series of obligatory scenes in which non-essential characters are murdered with a bloody hook, wielded by a fisherman, a macabre figure in a long slicker and a rubber rain hat. Are you fucking an idiot? Dude, okay, I mean, first of all, one of the most annoying things about modern film critics, and this is where they learned it, by the way, is you watch a video on YouTube even, or you read modern articles, they spend 75% of the fucking video or of the article just relaying the plot to you, just telling you what happened, like beat by beat, as if that is providing any sort of insight. Like, no, motherfucker, you're just giving me a synopsis. You're not providing insight. They learned that from Ebert. Ebert would spend almost all of his review space just being like, this is what happened in the movie, and somehow that has been accepted as film criticism, for what film criticism is. Ebert fucking ruined film criticism. What the fuck is this bullshit? I don't even hate Roger Ebert, like, generally speaking, but I do think his style is fucking lazy, and his insight is 9 out of 10 times cookie cutter fucking garbage. And I guess just to actually go to like the points, the really weak, like shamelessly fucking weak points he does try to make in the bitchiest, most condescending way possible, by the way. Just to go to it, he's mad that non essential characters are murdered with a bloody hook. We have to believe that this fisherman is for real. Williamson's script, he plays with paranoia for as long as he can, but eventually you have to see the ramifications, the consequences of the punishment, the severity of the kind of figure of torment of the fisherman that's after them. You have to be displayed cruelty. And it's not necessarily about connecting with the non-essential characters. It's not necessarily about connecting with them. It's about imagining that this will happen to some of the four characters that you have grown to love and identify with, and that Williamson is most invested in investigating on an emotional and philosophical and postmodern and romantic level. You're supposed to be in fear for our leads. But I'm even downplaying the complexity of the film, especially with the Galecki death I was just talking about. Some of these things are outward expressions of a very specific and sadistic modality that was first demonstrated and exercised by the characters. I remember Barry going in there and threatening that character with a hook, even, or with like an ice pick, right? Like with the phallic instrument for sure. So his death that almost immediately follows right after that is an amplification of Barry's toxicity. There's so much fucking complexity here. And then when Bridget Wilson, Sarah Michelle Gellar's sister, is murdered, that is also like an amplification of Helen's depressed desperation, that the captivity that she feels, and the abuse that she feels coming from her sister is an amplification of a sort of rage and morbid sort of justice in a large way. And the cop that is killed, another non-essential character, that's Williamson's way of saying that authority figures will be castrated. Authority figures mean nothing in this universe. Authority figures will not help you, especially masculine ones. I could go into it a lot more, but I'm not here to educate anyone, and Ebert's dead, so I don't fucking care. This is a fishing village, one of the friends says. Everybody has a slicker. Yes, but not everybody wears it ashore, along with the hat, during steamy July weather. Only the fisherman does. And since the movie doesn't play fair with its fisherman clues, we're left with one of those infuriating endings in which, danger, plot spoiler ahead, the murders were committed by none of the above. What? Dude, what are you fucking talking about? Roger, did you really think it was Ray? I know that like 75% of the movie is almost like a half-hearted attempt to cast doubt on Ray. but you're not supposed to. Like, you're not, like, actually supposed to believe that it's Ray. You're supposed to think that it is a definite possibility, but you're mostly supposed to think it's the fucking person they ran over. Like, I wait, Roger, you seem to think like you're so much smarter than this movie, and yet, and yet you're mad because of the unfairness of a plot device conceit. Like, you're mad at one of the turns that it took. How are you not able to follow this movie, you fucking brainlet? I wouldn't have a problem if he wasn't so confident in the idea that, like, "Psh, of course it's like none of the ones that I thought it'd be. It was just something just doesn't make any sense." What do you mean it doesn't make any fucking sense? Or maybe, like, use your fucking big brain and be like, this is a hyper personification of guilt, of responsibility, of a sort of castration of power. View the fisherman as a hyper personification of that, because that's really what he is. It's not necessarily like Ben Willis, like this tried and true, super sophisticated character. It's a hyper personification of the ultra modern world's morbid obsession, hyper fixation on tormenting and killing kids, be that through media, through the disenchanted world itself, like by alienating them in every conceivable way. And yes, that is a certain kind of slaughter, completely. Like, like, did you think it was Ray or Anne Heche? Like, who did you actually think it was? You fucking dumb shit. The ads make much more of the fact that I Know What You Did Last Summer is from the creators of Scream. That means both scripts are by Kevin Williamson. Tread very lightly, Mr. Ebert. Think very carefully about what you're gonna say about Big Daddy W. My bet is that he hauled this one out of the bottom drawer after Scream passed the $100 million mark. Um, You wouldn't be, like, entirely off. I Know What You Did Last Summer was rushed into production after Scream was successful, but that isn't to imply that this was a poor script or that Kevin Williamson's heart wasn't in this one. It was arguably more in I Know What You Did Last Summer than in Scream. There's a far greater deal of emotional devotion when it comes to the actual crafting of the screenplay, considering that Kevin Williamson based this story in a fishing village, just like he would base Dawson's Creek in one as well, because that's where he grew up. The fisherman, his father was a commercial fisherman. This is saying some wildly hyper personal things about masculine identity as portrayed through extremely grim boogeymen that hack fucking young girls and very young guys up. Like, this is saying a lot about that. I think that he's far more emotionally dedicated to I Know What You Did Last Summer. Essentially, with Kevin Williamson, if you're wondering how personal it is to him, the closer it is to Dawson's Creek, the more personal it is, which makes Dawson's Creek and I Know What You Did Last Summer the most personal things he ever did. I Know What You Did Last Summer being the most personal film I believe he ever wrote. Dawson's Creek is absolutely the most private, personal, and sensitive work he was ever a part of. He created Dawson's Creek, and that's him. That is Kevin Williamson writ large. That's Dawson's Creek. And here, and I Know I Did Last Summer, it has a lot of things in common with Dawson's Creek, including, like I said earlier, I think that the four main characters possess the same archetypal behaviors and like moods, attitude, characteristics of the four main principles of Dawson's Creek. I think that Dawson, Joey, Jen, and Pacey are, Ray, Julie, Helen, and Barry, unmistakably, unmistakably. Only out like Dawson's Creek, it isn't a horror film. It's a beautiful teen melodrama. That's probably the most impressive postmodern work of art ever is Dawson's Creek. I Know He Did Last Summer. He's allowed to not only deconstruct the archetypes that he's clearly obsessed with, but he's also able to dismember them and punish them, which is also a form of self-punishment, considering how personal his writing was for both Dawson's Creek and I Know He Did Last Summer. But no, it's cool that Roger Ebert is just like going blind and swinging at fucking shadows, thinking he's smarter than everybody and trying to diminish, minimize the emotional devotion that is clearly evident. And I know he did last summer. What a fucking hero we got over here. I fucking hate him right now. The neat thing about Scream was that the characters had seen a lot of horror films. So did the ones that I know you did last summer. It just wasn't about taking the horror genre itself out back, out the pasture, shooting it in the back of the fucking head, like Scream was. And they knew they were in a horror type situation. The difference is, you fucking moron, that the characters in Scream, they don't hate themselves. I know you did last summer. They know that a horrific situation, a situation that is full of tropes, is happening to them. They're fully aware of that. But each character expresses such a visceral amount of self-hate. It's, you could clearly feel it. It's something that is felt. So there's something that is secretive about them, but that is nonetheless amplified by the tension itself and by the characterization. The characters, and I know what you did last summer, on a certain level, they each feel like they deserve it, right? So they're not going to try to argue with the tropes. They're not going to try to deconstruct the themes, because those are things you do out of rebellion. That's part of Scream's theme of rejection. When you rebel against something, it's normally because it seems unfair or unjust or unworkable or just not not right. You rebel against something because a rebellion seems like a truthful act in those situations. You rebel against something when you feel like you are being unfairly targeted. I know what you did last summer. They are targeted for reasons that they completely understand, and on a certain level, that might be a bit too nuanced and subtle for dumbass, dumb fuck, bitch, motherfucker Roger Ebert to understand. Dude, it's affecting emotionally. Like, it's touching me right now just trying to explain it to you. And I know there's one moment like that. As two women approach an ominous house, they observe ominously. Jodie Foster tried this. But for the rest of the movie, they're blissfully unaware of the dangers of running upstairs when pursued, walking around at night alone, trying to investigate the situation themselves, going onto seemingly empty fishing boats, etc. He is so dumb. He's dumber than fucking 80% of YouTube film critics, and trust me, they're the dumbest fucking group online. He only thinks that a fourth wall is being challenged in a film if it's directly spoken, if it's directly said. He doesn't understand the meta-contextual nature of horror unless they literally go, wink, wink, camera, Jodie Foster did this. Wow. Roger Ebert had so much influence and so much sway. I think that we can actually blame this motherfucker for how dumb movies got. After the screening was over and the lights went up, I observed a couple of my colleagues in deep and earnest conversation, trying to resolve the twists in the plot. They were applying more thought to the movie than the makers did. I would punch this motherfucker if he was still alive. A critic's mind is a terrible thing to waste. So is my time, Roger. You fucking moron. What the fuck? A critic's time is a terrible thing to waste. Oh my god. I Know What You Did Last Summer is one of the greatest films ever made. It is infuriatingly frustrating how often these films, some of my favorite films, most of my favorite films, are maligned. And they're taking their cues from mainstream fuck bitches like Roger Ebert. There wasn't a single piece of insight in that. He didn't like non-essential characters being killed, and he wanted more tongue-in-cheek, like winking at the camera pieces of meta references of self-referential Kevin Williamson-esque stuff. He wanted Kevin Williamson to, what the fuck does he think Scream's about? Oh my god, I'm too afraid to even read that review. He'll be like, I got all the references. See those references? I got it. If Roger Ebert were like 19 years old today, he'd be making fucking 27 things you missed in Doctor Strange 6. He'd be making Easter egg movies about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he'd be humiliated for it. Seriously, I don't understand what his problems were with the movie. Like, he actually didn't say anything. He brought up the most superficial criticisms you can possibly have, like, isn't it impractical to wear like like fishing gear in the summer? Whoa, that's your big takeaway? At the end of it, he said, a critic's mind shouldn't be wasted, which is definitely saying that he didn't even attempt to engage with the movie. He was just a fucking brat the entire time. He refused to engage with the movie. That's why we got all those superficial things, because he's just doing the bare fucking minimum, dude. And he got paid for that fucking shit, and he made a good living off writing bullshit like this. I have read reviews that I like of Ebert. Sure, if you write fucking hundreds of reviews, you're gonna eventually write two or three great ones. It's just gonna happen. He got paid to write that. He got paid to watch a postmodern masterpiece and then refuse to deal with it because they didn't make direct references to his favorite horror movies. He watched a postmodern masterpiece and then refused to interpret it because he thought that wearing fisherman's clothing was impractical in July. He saw one of the greatest postmodern masterpieces ever made and refused to give it any sort of time, any sort of investigation, because he thought Barry was a bully. Were you beaten up by someone who looked like Brian Philippi, you fucking ugly motherfucker? I'm getting mean, but I can be mean. This guy made more money than I will ever see off of deliberately, he admits to it, refusing to interact with art that he feels for some arbitrary reason he's above, he's greater than. He's a buffoon. I fucking hate him. I Know What You Did Last Summer is one of the most deeply sophisticated, deeply complex, and deeply emotional postmodern masterpieces ever made. It's one of the greatest horror films ever developed, and Kevin Williamson is a fucking legend, a master. I Know What You Did Last Summer is shockingly beautiful, and it honestly changed my life. I could spend days, months, years dedicating all of my time to the film and still finding new levels, new layers. I Know You Did Last Summer is the postmodern masterpiece that never stops giving, that never stops transforming, that never stops blowing my mind. I Know What You Did Last Summer has my entire heart. I love that film. There might not be a film that I love more than that one. That's one of the worst reviews I have ever read, period. I cannot believe he wasted our fucking time like that. You'd think he'd provide insight. But no, he ends with, I shouldn't waste my brain on this movie. Critics of our stature shouldn't waste our time on movies like this. While even admitting that Scream, according to him, and had a level of complexity that he recognized, and then also recognizing that they're created and written by the same fucking genius, you'd think he'd give it more of a chance, but he didn't. And he was really proud about it. He was happy. He was fucking gloating. He was bragging about wasting our fucking time with paragraphs that went absolutely nowhere, except to the most superficial outcomes possible. Like, it's a satire of superficial film criticism. And at the very end, he says, I'm not gonna waste my brain on it. I have better things to think about. Fuck you. Fuck you times infinity, you dumb fucking bitch. Fuck Roger Ebert. Don't come for Kevin Williamson, baby. Don't come for I Know What You Did Last Summer specifically. If you come for I Know What You Did Last Summer or Scream 2, I will fucking wreck you, homie. Fuck off. I've been your cult boyfriend, making fun of a dead person. He deserves it. Come on. He deserves it. He deserves it. Thank you for watching.